Welcome to PCI Talk, where we keep up with the ever-changing world of communications and public relations with Public Communications Incorporated. Join us as our team of professionals bring you along on our journey with personal stories and industry insider knowledge from choosing an agency to crisis management and everything in between. PCI is a Chicago-based full-service communications agency serving clients that help our communities and the world in many industries, including healthcare, nonprofit, conservation, and more. Now let's talk.
Hello. We are really pleased to be able to be here with you today talking about strategic communications planning and tough questions. My name is Mary Erangey. I am an SVP at PCI. And we want to tell you that an outside partner is one of the most valuable assets you can engage for strategic communications planning. And here's why. Because the most effective strategic planning comes from a place of really curiosity and vulnerability and honesty. You do need a partner to explore tough questions. And we come in as that outside partner to basically hold up a mirror to yourselves and your perceptions of your organization. That's the part of the process that really makes it possible for us to transform your knowledge and your resources and your insights into clear strategies and tactics. So we come in with some assumptions made about you from an outside perspective. And that's kind of not the whole picture. We get that, but frankly, it's also part of our value, because with your permission and your partnership, then we together test those assumptions with questions that are designed to search out and stretch and clarify your own understanding of your opportunities. Strategic communications planning takes a lot of creative brainpower and focused intention. And a lot of clients come to us and they don't really know where to start. So Rachel and I, who have done this for a number of clients together, thought what we would do today is give you a glimpse into some of the 10 questions and what they mean and what you can expect from us as a strategic communications planner partner.
And my name is Rachel Bowen. I'm an account supervisor with our healthcare team at PCI, and I work with a variety of clients, and I work a lot with Mary, alongside Mary, on strategic communications planning. So I'm really excited to dive deeper into this today and go into our 10 questions that we really ask all of our clients.
And like everything else, this really does become a conversational process. So Rachel and I are just going to have a conversation here. So we've identified 10 key things, like we said, some areas of tough questions. And the starting point for all of this is auditing where you're at. So Rachel, when you think about the projects we've worked on together, what comes to mind as the most critical question to be asking relative to that auditing start?
Yeah, so I think this stage is very important because we need to have a baseline of where we're at. So it's important to ask yourselves, what are we doing right now? And then what do we want to expand upon in the future? If we know what we're doing right now, we can see it's going well. We don't have to recreate the wheel on everything that we do. And then we can identify opportunities for building your brand even further in an integrated communication space. So one idea is, do you have a media presence? Have you done media interviews in the past? If so, do you have a thought leader in your organization, maybe the CEO, who is really well known by media and the public in the space that you're in? If so, let's build upon that brand presence. So it's really kind of getting an idea of where you're at in this current moment. And then from there, we can figure out how you're doing at that, with the communications tactics that you're implementing right now. And I think that would be a great piece for Mary to go into about your track record and, what are you doing well? So Mary, do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, Rachel, so that is one of those key things to start from, because we know coming in from outside, there are things that you've already been doing and you already have a sense of what's been working and what's not been working. So that's the track record we're talking about. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, but you do want to be able to see it from a fresh perspective. And so the essential questions are exactly that simple. What's working and what isn't working? Because the goal, of course, is to build on what your successes are. And a quick story to tell you about that that discovery process, when we begin to ask those questions, one of the clients that we worked with, a personal and medical home care organization, as we went through that process and asked and answered those questions with their executive team, we discovered in that meeting that they recognized there were some layers that they didn't know clearly from the perspective of individual geographic regions of their company throughout the country, and that there were specific individuals in leadership positions that needed to be brought to the table. And so as a result of asking that question, what's working, what's not, we knew we had to add another step to the process. And we went out and hosted additional meetings with very specific locally based leadership teams to find out from their perspective what was working and not working in those areas, so that that could be factored into the plan. Because all of it has to work together to support your business objectives. And that is something that we come back to so often. It's so important to factor in. And Rachel and I have worked on a couple of projects where that's been a key thing. And so, Rachel, what's your takeaway of why business objectives are such an important thing to consider in planning?
Yeah, so you really want your communications goals to align with your business objectives because, not only do you want a stronger brand identity, do all these cool campaigns, make the public really see your brand as one that stands out, but you really need to make progress in your business objectives, because that's what it all comes down to. That could mean increasing your sales, reaching more customers or consumers. Maybe you're with a healthcare association that's trying to pass legislation. Maybe it's spreading awareness about a medication, a disease, or even a career. We work with a lot of healthcare associations who are just trying to spread awareness about the medical profession and what they do. We work with the National Society of Genetic Counselors, and they just want to spread awareness about genetic counselors and who they are, what they do, and why you should see one. And so it's important to go back to those main business objectives so that you know where you're trying to go, and you want everything to complement each other. Because if you're making all these strides doing these cool campaigns that have nothing to do with your business objectives, what's the point? You really want them all to work together. And so a key piece to really reaching those business objectives is taking a step back and knowing who your key stakeholders are and who you're trying to reach in order to achieve that success. And I know Mary and I do a lot of work with clients where we're helping them and we're facilitating a conversation on who are your key audiences. Not only, who do you want to know about your brand and your brand identity, but who are the ones that are, giving you the money that you need to keep going? Who are the people that you really need to reach in order to reach those objectives? So Mary, if you could talk a little bit more about finding those audiences and how we facilitate those conversations with clients, that would be great.
Yeah, and it's funny because it seems like a no-brainer, right? Oh, your key audiences. Everybody knows who our key audiences are. Here's a little reality check for you. When we've done this with executive teams, we have found out over and over again that you get into a room and you quickly realize that there's not alignment between different perspectives on who those key audiences are. And that's the important thing that an outside agency is able to do, is to get key players in a room together and ask that kind of question. Okay, is your priority audience referral sources? Okay, let's say you get people to agree on that. Now, who are those referral sources? Are they pharmacists? Are they physicians? Are they nurses? Are they case managers? And we so often see divergence amongst even a leadership team about how to prioritize them. And when it comes to a communications program, it's not that you have to prioritize those audiences and they are written in stone for your business. It's that by having those audience priorities agreed amongst your executives, it means you have buy-in for where you're going to focus your time and attention and energy and resources for the life of that particular program or campaign. And then because of that, you'll be able to know whether you're really achieving progress toward those goals. And we've seen that as you get into those discussions, you start to identify some differences. And We saw that, Rachel, with Avita, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we work with a pharmacy, Avita, who is really focused on HIV treatment and care and treating the whole patient. But they also really need to reach covered identities because they do a lot of work with the 340B program. So we have these two specific audiences that are both very important to their overall business objectives. But they need to be messaged in different ways. They need to be reached in different ways. So we found that it was really important to split these up and say, what is our messaging to each of these groups? And then we can narrow it down further from there. But it was so important to identify those audiences and make sure we know how we should be speaking to both of them to not only, grow their business, but to grow their brand identity as well.
So let's talk about success. Success. Rachel, when we approach this, how does that factor into our conversations in the strategic planning process?
Yes. So success is something Mary already talked about getting buy-in and on the same page with the C-suite executives. This is another thing you really want to get buy-in on. What does success look like? What are you expecting from our work in this communications program? Because you'll find that people are often expecting different things. They see things differently. So it's really important to get on the same page and know your goals and have that same shared goal that you're working towards so that you can remain focused in all of your efforts and so that you can develop specific measurements and metrics that you can look at over time and figure out, are we reaching those goals? Do we need to pivot? Do we need to do anything different? Should we brainstorm other ideas? So having that baseline level of what does success look like is crucial, and to have everyone's buy-in there as well. And I talked a little bit about metrics. That's another really important thing. And I'd love if, Mary, you could talk a little bit about how we define metrics for our clients.
Yeah, and you can see there's it all builds together, right? So you've got your business objectives, and then you define your audiences, you define what success looks like. Well, metrics are what help you know when you're getting there, because if you're setting a destination for yourself on the map, you need to be able to know, are you making progress toward that destination or not? And then making adjustments appropriately. And did you get there? And so now you get to celebrate. We arrived. So metrics could be as simple as kinds of media coverage, visibility in very particular media outlets, because those are the places your audiences are going to get information. It could be higher engagement rates on some of your social media platforms because maybe you have members who are really active in certain social channels. It could be certain digital metrics, click rates, click-through rates for email marketing, or visits to particular pages on your website, because those are related to specific programs that are high priority for you. Having metrics lets you know if you're getting toward your destination. And it also, when you're traveling toward a destination, you probably have some timelines in mind. And so when, and timing. Rachel, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Knowing that timing is crucial, not only to developing a communications plan and developing a timeline of when you're going to roll everything out, but you need to know why this came to be. What are your priorities at this time? I think Mary and I have worked with a lot of clients recently on mergers and acquisitions. So we have a specific timeline in mind when we need to get everything in order, all of our communications and messaging in order, so that we can start disseminating their new brand and messaging along with the brand rollout. So that's a timeline to keep in mind. And then we may develop a larger communications plan in the future to keep that steady drumbeat going. This also could be, we've had a lot of clients recently that are coming to us with their diversity, equity, and inclusion plans. They may have seen a need for that to really take a priority and take center stage right now. And how are we going to communicate this to our customers, our members, all of our audiences? And how are we going to change the way that we have been communicating? So there are certain things to keep in mind. Knowing when and why you got there is really important, so that you can keep that in mind, keep that timeline in mind, and those priorities in mind. And, when there's the when, there's the where. So, Mary, it would be great if you could tell us a little bit more about the where, because we need to reach these audiences in specific places. And, we already talked about the audiences. So that's our next step.
Yeah. And with the where, I'm going to tell a quick story too, because one of the things that's important about the timing of this is you have inside an organization, you have your own sense of timing priorities. What's critical about a communications program is you have to tie it to what external timing opportunities are unfolding as well. And so one particular story there, in working with a large university client, we brought all the communicators together from across the entire institution. And we were planning out their entire storytelling strategy and how to bring all these divergent departments together and how to plot that out in a yearly calendar. And what we had this aha moment, this is the other reason why it helps so much to get people in a room together. There was this aha moment as we talked about the story themes and we looked at the calendar of events and academic cycles and identified that there were some themes that lined up. They had these story themes that actually hooked in very well to what some of these external drivers were. So by doing that and them having that aha moment, we were able to tie that directly then to where as well. Because that meant by knowing what the story theme was and when it was going to be important, we could know, because of the audiences, where were they going to be? Were they going to be at an event where we were able to distribute materials in person perhaps? Or were they going to be looking at recruitment cycles? And so then the where was, now you need to be visible on some of these discovery platforms or ratings sites. And, was it around the cycle of athletic sports events? College athletics are big. And so then, okay, maybe we need to have visibility in the promotions of certain sporting events, even advertising. So all of those things come together to define where your specific opportunities match up with where your audiences are and what they care about. And what your audiences care about really is also kind of what determines where you need to be thinking about your influencers. And Rachel, you've done a lot of work with influencers, so I'd love you to talk about that.
Yeah. And I think it's important to know, we put together these big communications plans and we're putting them out on our channels or your clients' channels. But it doesn't stop there. You don't need to do this alone. I mean, you can only reach so far on your own, and that's where influencers come into play. I don't know about everybody else, but when I'm scrolling through Instagram and I see one of my favorite TV stars, reality TV stars that are posting something, I'm going to take a look more than I will sometimes with an ad or something. So it's and I'm sure I'm not alone on that one. I know I'm not. So it's important to it's important to know who's going to be an advocate for your brand, who's going to champion it, because expanding to their audiences is so crucial in getting your messaging out there. I'll give an example from, a healthcare association example. I talked about the National Society of Genetic Counselors already, but we have a lot of reporters that we work with who have very personal ties to genetics and may have seen a genetic counselor in the past. And we know that we can go to them and talk with them, and they might be interested in a story. This expands to our online presence as well. We actually developed a digital ambassador program that we called the Gene Pool. And we took a bunch of different types of people, influencers who may have, who may be patient advocates. Maybe they tested positive for the BRCA mutation and they got a double mastectomy and they want to tell more people about it. Maybe they're a genetic counselor in research that is doing something super innovative. It can be a variety of things. And it can also be people from different organizations that are working towards the same goal as you. So it's important to touch base with a lot of different people, reach out to influencers, make sure that you're getting your message out there to a variety of different audiences that reach past your brand and what you can do from posting on social media or even advertising. It's great that word of mouth advertising is huge. So influencers, I'm a big fan. I think it's the way to go. And that's the best way that you're going to communicate your message, I think. And so it's also really great to take a step back and think about who's already out there that's doing what you want to be doing. It's always good to set goals. Think of, who do you want to emulate? And I think it'd be great, Mary, if you could talk a little bit about inspiration and how we help clients figure out where they want to get to go by looking at their peers.
Yeah, and this is the number 10 question area. And, it's a good one to end on too, because a lot of what we've been talking about, maybe some of this sounds a little dry and a little like, oh my God, we got to roll up our sleeves and it's a little tedious. But this one is the part where you get to step back and just kind of breathe into this a little bit and say, what inspires us? Inspiration. There is absolutely a place for inspiration in your communications planning, because you as leaders, you as the people who need to inspire your teams, need to be able to convey what it is that you care about so much that you want to invest in sharing stories about. So it's looking around the landscape outside your organization, as Rachel said, who's doing work that you just think is rock star successful that you want to emulate, whether that's an individual or it's a brand, a company. What lessons can you learn from the things that inspire you that they're doing that perhaps you can emulate inside your own organization? And I think I'll close out with a little story here. One of the things a question that we will ask that gave us some interesting, really powerful results from a workshop we facilitated with a healthcare incubator. It's kind of, what's your North Star? What's the North Star that keeps you all coming together at the end of a hard week, coming back and saying, we've got important work to do? And their North Star was about making heroic change. And as we all talked as a group, here's another benefit of this strategic planning process. We're talking with them about what are the heroic moments, heroic change that they celebrate that inspires them. And I could see around the room that they were inspiring each other by sharing those stories. Never underestimate the importance of the ability you have to inspire your peers and your colleagues by sharing the stories about what gets to your heart. And know that that's one of those other perks, really, an underlying benefit of getting into this strategic communications planning process and having an outside partner walk through it with you and help facilitate that to bring out these kinds of insights. We really do thank you for tuning in, listening to this. Share what you think was really an aha moment for you. If something we said really captured you, get in touch with us. This is the kind of work we love to do, and we've really seen it deliver benefit for our clients. Thanks, Rachel, for being part of this with me.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you all for tuning in.
Thanks for listening to PCI Talk. We'll see you next time, and in the meantime, check us out on social media for more insider information.